Good morning, everyone. Today's topic is a somber one. I want to discuss the fatal crash of that Model S the other day that burst into flames. And first off, I want to say that my condolences go out to the loved ones, and losing somebody, especially a youth, is never an easy thing. And so I want to be respectful of the families that are involved, and just say that my thoughts and prayers go out to them. It's a very difficult thing to deal with, so I do not in any way want to make light of a death. So it's a tragic situation, but primarily I want to discuss vehicle safety and a little bit of what's going on when there is a vehicle fire. So first off, gas vehicle proponents will very much lean on electric cars have fires and all that, and then EV aficionados will be very quick. Oh, beautiful Model 3 just went by there. EV aficionados will be very quick to point out the fact that gas vehicles have a far higher incidence of fires than electric vehicles. Yes, I know there's many times more gas vehicles than electric, but there are many, many, many more fires of gas vehicles than there are of electric. So there's arguments on both sides. But a couple things that I want to bring up. First of all, this, for whatever reason, is a very volatile topic, and no pun intended there. But discussing EVs and safety is it's a topic that is very it's volatile. It's almost like discussing politics. I found that people that I've talked to about it that know something about it are very passionate on one side or another. And so I want to start off my opinion of this by stating that there are the way a battery fire occurs and the way a gas vehicle fire occurs are completely different. With a gas vehicle, typically it is a punctured gas tank or something, and it will the leaking fuel will start on fire, or there can be a blown fuel hose in the engine compartment that can start on fire. And so with a gas fire, the size of the fire is purely dependent on how much fuel is leaking out. And contrary to Hollywood, fuel tanks rarely explode, and there's a whole reason behind all of that. But typically a gas fueled fire will burn and burn and burn, and it'll continue burning as more fuel is introduced, and it is very difficult to put out gasoline once it's burning. Now, and a gas fire, if a lot of fuel is spilled all at once, then there's a huge fire that erupts all at once. Electric vehicle fires typically start out small and they slowly grow, but they stay for a long period of time. Where they are similar to gasoline fires is that they're difficult to put out. However, with a gasoline fire, difficult to put out might be several minutes to get it put out, whereas with an EV, it can be several hours. In fact, there are incidents where the next day, after putting an EV out, the next day it starts burning again. And the reason for that is you've got, like in the case of Teslas, you've got thousands of individual sealed battery cells, and each of those cells has the potential to start a fire by itself. And there's a principle called thermal runaway, where as cells erupt, they generate heat. That heat heats up the cells next to them, which puts them into thermal runaway, and then they start burning, and it cascades. But it occurs slowly. Also, the fire in an electric battery can reignite later, because you've got thousands of electrical connections, and maybe a couple of them are shorted now. You've got cells that have been compromised that will erupt later. With a gas fire, basically once it's out, unless there's still flammable fuel present and another source of combustion to relight it. So it's both fires are potentially deadly. And the fact of the matter is that the energy required to push a vehicle is quite extreme. And requiring such a large amount of energy, potential energy that's stored, really no matter what the storage medium in our current technology, with the exception of maybe compressed air, but most storage mediums in today's technology are potentially combustible. So, fires breaking out, it's going to occur, and it bothers me when those that are against EVs just bring up fires. Well, I don't want to be burned to death, so I'm not going to buy an EV. Really? Did you know that there are far more fires per number of vehicle ownership of gas cars than there are of EVs? So if you take 10,000 EV owners, 10,000 gas vehicle owners, there's going to be more fires within those 10,000 gas vehicle owners than there are the 10,000 EV owners. It's a fact. But also, there's no discounting when there's an EV fire, the hazard of now you have to quarantine this crazy car for a couple of days to make sure it's not going to reignite. It's kind of ridiculous, really. So there is that facet of it. So, but on top of this, you've got incidents like this Model S that recently was crashed and burst into flames, and it was a fatal crash. One thing that people don't seem to be talking much about is that the car was going over 100 miles an hour and it hit a wall. You go 100 plus miles an hour and you hit a wall, you're probably going to die, whether it be from the impact or potentially a fire afterward. And so high performance vehicles are high performance vehicles, but even a basic vehicle, my daughter owns a Saturn L200, and though I've never tried it, I'm betting that car will go 100 miles an hour. It cruises just fine at 75 in the expressway and still has a bit of power to pass. So even basic cars will exceed 100 miles an hour. So you can't even really blame it just on the high performance aspect of the car. The fact of the matter is that human beings are tempted to make hazardous choices, and I'm no different. Thank God I haven't had to pay the price with my life, but I've gone in excess of 100 miles an hour on motorcycles numerous times in my life. I probably should be dead. Thank God I'm not. But I used to race dirt bikes, not competitively, but just with friends. And oh my goodness, I mean, I've double jumped 30 feet. I mean, a lot of things that I probably should be dead, but I'm not. And we as human beings tend to make hazardous choices. Sometimes it costs us, and sometimes it doesn't. Unfortunately, in this instance, it cost human life, and again, for that, I really feel for the families. But I want to be very clear that it's not the fault of an EV that this accident occurred, nor that there was a death. It was a crash of multiple thousands of pounds of vehicle moving human beings at 100 plus miles an hour, and a collision occurred, and that was the cause of that crash. I'm not going to get into the minutia. Investigators will do that. I haven't been to the scene or anything, but I'm just saying that that formula, high weight, high speed, human beings involved, and a collision, that is the recipe for a fatality. And so anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know what my thoughts were, and it's a big deal. But part of the reason that I made this video was because also recently, for those of you that are car people, you'll know that the McLaren Senna that caught fire, the YouTuber Salamandran, his first name is Alejandro, decent guy. He had a $500,000 McLaren Senna that burst into flames, and there was no collision involved there. The car just burst into flames. And there's a buzz about that just because it was a $500,000 exotic car. but it just burst into flames for no reason. Didn't even hit anything. And so that's the main reason I wanted to discuss this Tesla issue. The Tesla was in a high-speed collision, then it burst into flames after the fact. There was a Tesla that burst into flames not too long ago that individual fired a gun down into the floorboard of the car, and it pierced through the top of the pack and set the battery on fire. You know, these were external mechanical interaction, I guess you call mechanical trauma, that caused electrical shorting in the pack, whereas that McLaren burst into flames just on its own. You know, it could have been a burst fuel line or whatever, but they didn't even hit anything. And so, you know, you're going to hear anti-EV people decrying how hazardous EVs are, and yet that McLaren burnt down, and yet you don't hear boo about that. And I know there were no injuries when the McLaren burnt down, thank God for that. But the reason there were no injuries is because there wasn't really an accident. You know, it's easy to stop and climb out of the car. So anyway, a lot to digest. Thanks for tuning in, guys. For those of you that are new to the channel, welcome. And if you'd like to use my referral code to buy a new Tesla, there'll be a link in the description below. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to go ahead and leave a comment. I do my best to answer every question I can. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.